Hello and welcome back to the Serene Scriptures podcast, everybody. I'm joined again with my good fellow co-host, the record keeper Valkyrie here. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right. It's been a long week and a long time since we've gotten to talk about some Grand Archive, but I'm feeling up to it and ready. How about yourself?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, so I guess there's been a lot. There's been a lot. We
Yeah.
started an academy program nearby me, so I've been traveling a lot. My birthday just happened. I'm 30 now, so I'm like a bag of bones. I am literally like Ryle Postman. I'm just a bag of bones and skull, you know.
You're ephemeral at this point now, since
Yeah,
you've hit 30.
pretty much. I'm in the graveyard. Someone pay 3. Ephemerate me, please, and thank you. But yeah, so today we'll just be going over a lot of events. So normally we do, the weekly event and then maybe one other if there's anything else. But today we are going to go through a lot of different things. Today is Rile the Recap. We are riling all of the recaps together in one, basically up until the point where Rile the Abyss is banned. So we'll talk about all the events leading into this, how the results looked overall. And then next week we'll chat with you guys about events post-Rile.
Cheers, all +2 to that. Sounds like a good time.
All right, without further ado, let's hop into it. So let's take a look at the Yeti Gaming Weekly of August 21st. So do you want to start us off with this one?
Yeah, so this one, honestly, as to be expected, we got some Ryle decks in here. One thing that initially caught me off guard was seeing that Serene Razorgale Vanitas coming in at 301. I really had to do a double take seeing that list appear, because it was just, that's a list you haven't seen since the Ascent people say that never happened, right? Toronto, it was one of that crazy pre-rata 3 visits, and the fact that it did as well into the field of what is like primarily fire, super shocking to me. So I think that's an awesome pick to bring into a Yeti. Not a lot of players might have experience against it, and a lot of Fantasia removal now since fractals are gone is not in sideboard or mainboard options. So your Razorgale Callings can just survive and get those small increments of damage one after another. And so many people are getting greedy with the level 3 decks that I feel like Vanitas has no pressure whatsoever.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, this is August 21st. So this is before Purifying Thurible has come out and before Rile the Abyss has gone on Category 2. So this deck list is not running Purifying Thurible, which kind of makes it even more impressive that it made it this far without having that graveyard interaction that I feel like Wind generally lacks. We do have cards like Purging Tempest, which are more proactive. Anytime a card would go to the graveyard, it would be banished on that turn. However, it doesn't react to things that are already in the graveyard. So kind of interesting to see. My favorite deck list here is the Serene Crux Lorraine here. Serene Fire Onsol. This is I believe it's known as like a TM32 special, something that they've been doing, playing Infusion. Spirit Blade Infusion's a really neat touch to this. So Spirit Blade Infusion is a 2-cost card that says this card costs 2 less to activate if your champion has dealt attack damage this turn, so combat damage, and then until end of turn, target sword weapon gets +3 and on champion hit draw a card. So this is like a huge combo into the Votive Runeblade that allows you to really send like aggressive damage.
Yeah, I really like Devoted Runeblade really has opened up a lot for Lorraine. And also seeing Infusion is a blast from the past. That was a huge card when DOA, the game came out in DOA. A lot of people played that. And it was one of those how do I maximize my value? You saw that card a lot before the Dungeon Guide Wake Up rules occurred as well. And then once that ruling came in where your champion no longer wakes up when it levels up, it sort of fell to the wayside. So the fact that it's back again in the DTR meta, super fun, super cool to see. Nostalgic for old Crux players. I know people out there are probably watching. It's like back in my days, Crux used to be able to run all the cards that we were provided, not just a few and stuff like that. It's as we talked about, fun fact with the Serene Spirit as well with this Lorraine list is it's literally just for protection. It's your main win con is going to be that Ensoul, and not having that Spirit of Fire when you have an Ensoul in hand your next turn, it doesn't matter at that point. I know some decks sort of use it as like an, oh, I need to do this to sort of stay alive a little bit longer, but I can't really close out the game. Looking mostly at Luxem Xander for that because they have a lot of ways to draw outside of it. But Lorraines are so happy to release their spirit and then be like, okay, my turn, and Soul. Oh, I guess you lose.
Insult
So that's
die.
why yeah, like, that's why the Serene Spirit makes way more sense than like any other normal spirit for this particular Lorraine list.
Yeah, being able to glimpse 6 right off the bat and kind of craft your hand in that way is pretty good. Aside from that, we can jump into the stats. There's not too much to talk about for these weeklies. They're kind of a little more on the straightforward side. We do still have a huge representation of fire. This is looking very, very synonymous to other weeks. I mean, 56% fire while Rile's still in full effect kind of makes sense. A lot of people are really enjoying playing their aggressive Rile the Abyss engines to get to level 3, play around the different level 3 sets. The most popular decks being Merlin, Lorraine, Xander, and CL. And for Xander, it's the Luxem package that people play. So other than that, I think the only thing that interested me a lot here was, I guess, seeing Diao-Chan. Seeing Diao-Chan was interesting. There are only 4 Diao-Chan players, but I'm always interested to see whether it's Fractals or Fire Aggro. And it turns out actually for this week, I believe it was a split 50-50 between Fire Aggro and Fractals. So Fractals still having that like position in the game is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's always something that people do have to be worried about. The deck didn't vanish all of a sudden when DTR came out. It's still as good as it was back with the HVN. One thing I do want to note, this is only a 36-player Yeti, so one of the smaller Yetis compared to what we normally see around like the 40s and 50s. And so maybe a factor as we are leading up to, I believe, Boston in this instance. It's 2 weeks away from Boston.
This was actually 2 days before Boston.
Oh, 2 days before Boston.
Yeah.
So
So that's why
so
there
even
weren't
that,
as many people. A lot of people had already left traveling and such.
traveling and such. Yeah. And one thing I do want to challenge you here for once is just look at Lorraine. Let's see how many like events she stays at the top.
Lorraine is so interesting because she has so many viable decks right now, right? We have Looking Glass decks, we have Onsol decks. In the future, we'll see a lot of people playing Infusion decks instead of playing Onsol. We have Merlin decks, and then we have Suited decks, and we have Fire Aggro. Like, there's just... And that doesn't even include the Wind Wake Up decks that we see, the Water Allies. Like, Lorraine is just the staple... I mean, she's the cover girl of Grand Archive. There's no other way to put it. She is the face of Grand Archive, and in this meta, she really thrives in that position.
100%. The fact that her level 1 gets you a free weapon, you just like that is so valuable, and a lot of good cards are locked behind Warrior. But just want to note, as we go through these champion statistics, we'll see how long the Queen can have the throne, and who will actually dethrone her in the upcoming events.
Yeah, for sure. And the upcoming events we do see with Ascent Boston, the Horse and Taxes deck, the Chess Club special, the Ponytas Uma Musume deck that has come out here and it caught everyone by storm, right? At first, before we go into like the actual standings here, I want to talk about it. At first, people were like, "Oh, this is just a meta call. It's just a meta call. It's only good for this event because no one's playing Water," and that has proven not to be true at all. This deck has exceeded expectations. It has done well at so many events, which you guys will see throughout the rest of this video. It's great. I mean, it's fantastic. I think Pickle Sword is a phenomenal deck builder. His ability to engineer and create these things, alongside working with Zero TB, one of the new Chess Club members, those guys have phenomenal brains when it comes to the inner workings of the game and how to manipulate the design.
Yeah, I think no one can claim they saw this coming. Chess Club had the cards so close to their chest, were not revealing anything even in like conversations. They were locked in on this, and they showed up to an event and they said, "All right, everyone play your Rile deck. Everyone get to level 3, but we're gonna make sure you have the worst possible time getting to that level 3." And it shows. I think their conversion rate was like 80% of the players playing this deck made day 2, and then I think from there like 95% of the players who made day 2 made top 8. Insane for Chess Club. And just like, you mentioned them, but once again, big shout outs to, this is what Grand Archive's about. This is actual players brewing a deck to counter the meta, and we saw how powerful it was.
Yeah, so for the stats, there were 6 Chess Club members all on this deck. I believe there were 7 total Vanitas players. The one of them was not Chess Club. He was playing actual specters, is playing Vanitas specters, like
Oh,
with like 20, 30 specters. So it wasn't just like a Ral the Abyss engine. But this deck ended up being really, really effective against all these decks that want to like rush materializations, right? It's called the core syntaxes, only Ponytas, different things. The concept of it was to play a 2-drop or a 2-cost card after you go to level 2. So it's Ral the Abyss or Creative Shock, go neutral, level up. And then from there, you play a Dungeon Guide or Beseech to level 2, and then you'll have 1 card left in memory, and you play a 2-cost card. So that's either going to be Red Hair, Delu, Brisk Wind Trotter, or something like that. Fractal of Sparks was also an option. And then you activate everything, go to level 3, and on your second turn, you're level 3 and you're now taxing your opponent for every materialization. So against decks like Lorraine, where you want to materialize a weapon with your on enter, that weapon that you materialize now costs 1 more. So it was a deck that was built to punish these really Rile heavy decks, and it did fantastic at the event. I mean, there's no real other way to say it. This deck did absolutely fantastic.
yeah, you nailed it right there. But speaking of Lorraine, there's something a little suspicious about that top slot. That suspicion is Lorraine somehow fighting through these horse and taxes, made sure they provided a lot of wheatgrass to all these ponies that they met throughout the event, and managing to take first place at Boston. It was a very close, exhilarating match. It was so cool to see, but Bobby Tortilla's list just felt teched prepared against this kind of style. A lot of like main deck options and choices, and just the way they played that matchup seems so masterful, not rushing too fast into materializations, making sure to prevent damage when they absolutely need to if they want to level up, so they don't have to pay that additional fee that Vanitas is forcing them. And it's one of those, in a field that seemed to have countered you in the top 8, coming out on top shows not only deck strength, but also player skill.
Yeah, it's really big. There's a lot of interesting things that came in here. So let's go through the rest of the decks in top 8. Robotron did manage to get there on the Serene Fire Luxem Xander. It's a classic deck. A lot of people were wondering, does this deck still have legs in DTR? I mean, I think the results show for itself. It's doing well. Sky Sama performing on the KFC deck, the Fire Suzaku with the Peppered Chef, did manage to get into top 8. I believe the last match of day 2 was a mirror match against Henki, where Sky Sama actually made it in based on that win. But looking at this, there's a lot of really interesting stats to talk about, and I'm going to jump right into the champion graphics here. So looking at the champion graphics, like you said, Lorraine, number 1 slot with the most representation at 21%. But take us through the rest of this, Val. Take us through the rest of the champion meta breakdown here, and especially the spirit meta breakdown. I think this is a really big one to show.
Yeah, so we had Guojia coming in at second with about 17% of the representation. A lot of people putting a lot of faith in that KFC, that Fire Suzaku deck, thinking aggro is the way to go to beat these specters. Although a lot of these decks themselves are running that Liminal Guide, Rile the Abyss package just for that value into that level 1. And then we sort of see a trickle down of our stronger decks we thought were going to be top contenders: Ciel, Tristan, and Xander. 3 super strong champions in their own rights, especially with in this Rile meta, but sort of not as favored compared to the Guojia, which kind of caught a lot of people off guard here. And then a resurgence of a champion that we thought was dead. And, you know, everyone sort of had that handshake of like, maybe Jin is good right now in this meta, and a lot of people showed up with this. You see about 20-ish people, 19.5 of the decks were Jin, and it's just like from going from 0 representation from like our last major event into here shows a lot of people were really trying to think about how do we beat Rile, how do we interact with it, counter it. And I think it's a really good option, especially good against Lorraine, who relies on only attack damage. And then just following down here, we have our Merlins, our Dianas, Dao Chens, of course, will always be here between the Fractal and the aggro, our Vanitases, and then Tenoris, which is kind of funny to see for me. That's a champion we don't really see that often, but like ever since DTR came out and Ciel is a guardian who's provided guardian cards, Tenoris has started to like tick up in the trend of like usage. A lot of people like, oh, I could run new Guardian cards with Tenoris and it still works. And then jumping over to our spirits, you said it. This is crazy. This is wild. 170-ish players on a Spirit of Fire. That is crazy to think that 63% of the player base at Ascent Boston was on the Spirit of Fire. And then was it about a third of those players equivalent is on wind? And then water, doing its best to trying its best with 31 representation there. It's just a huge skew of just the spirit breakdown. Fire clearly dominating and is the element to be.
Yeah, and even looking at the top 8, and then now here with the champion and the spirit meta breakdown, I do want to mention that a lot of these other decks that we were talking about did make it very close, right? Alexander or Vegan, of the director of Core TCG, 11th place, Serene Fire, Spectre, Rile the Abyss, Exeogen, right? We have Sovotl, 14th place, Fire Aggro Xander. We have Death at War in 15th place, Serene Fire, Ablation, Umbraciel. Like, these decks made it there, right? They were really, really close to hitting that top level. So I think it's just interesting to see how like aggressive people were able to make it there, right? Even Superior, 21st place, Fire Aggro suited Xander. We definitely saw it. Things I want to talk about though, day 2 cut really quick. For day 2, there were 43 fire decks, which is 74%. 6 water decks, 10%, and 9 wind decks, which is 15.5%. So definitely a really, really big conversion on fire. We knew it was going to happen with how many people were playing fire, but also still good to see like at least 25% of day 2 representation was a different element. And within the fire itself, there's a lot of different decks in there, like a lot of different decks in there, right? It's not just
a good variety.
It's not just all the same thing. So overall, not too bad. But we'll jump into post Ascent Boston. So all the events from here forward will have Rile the Abyss on category 2 and the introduction of Purifying Thurible. Now, Purifying Thurible is actually, can you just walk us through how Purifying Thurible works?
Yeah, of course. So Thurible is a card from Phantom Monarchs that the devs have so graciously put into Proxia's vault for us. It is a Regalia, a Wind Regalia to be specific here. Costs 0 to materialize. And think of it as a sort of wind backup charger. You can pay X into your Thurible. If X is 3 or more, you get to draw a card into memory. And depending what the number X is, you get to banish that many cards from your opponent's graveyard. So it's a really cool graveyard interaction for wind that provides you a resource back if you pay enough into it here. So it was sort of a way of wind brings this out against these Rile decks, and now Rile really has to consider, what do I want to put in my grave? Because my opponent can just go ahead and remove this and still plus from that materialization. They're not losing a card for it, and they're not really slowing down a turn because they are gaining value. And if my opponent draws a card into memory and removes 2 floating memory, that's considered like a +3 for that Thurible, and it is very good.
Yeah, so we'll jump right into August 28th. This is the first event where Purifying Thurible is legal. Now, the interesting thing for here, before we jump into it, you as the audience, I'd love to see if you could guess how much wind will go up in terms of representation, and how much fire will go down, or what decks will be performing. So I'll give you a couple seconds there, and then we're going to jump right in and take a look at what actually quite surprised me a lot with August 28th. We have the top 4 decks here. Valkyrie, what do you think about these 4 decks?
Well, the number 1 deck's not wind once. We got Thurible. What's happening here? I thought we had the counter to Rile, but all of a sudden, Water Fractal Dao-Chan's just like, hey guys, remember how I was a menace during the HVN season and a lot of people didn't like me and I got about 2 cards banned that I used to run consistently? Well, even with those bans, I'm able to take a Yeti 4-0. A lot of people really not expecting Fractals to be in that metagame. So everyone's so hyper focused on that Rile package and fire. And then we see, skipping past the Luxem Xander for now, getting into our 3rd place, which is Wind Seryu Guojia. That is a deck that sort of has like always been on the cusp of good. A lot of people have tried it, a lot of people have played it, but no one's really like given it that push. And I think Thurible is a great addition to that deck. It has a chance for another materialization, slow down the opponent's deck as you turbo yourself, and it's really good at just OTKing these Rile decks. They don't really run too much defensive options because the Spectre package takes up, was it like 20 slots if you want to be super consistent in your deck? And those 20 slots are something, you're cutting Resolute Stands, you're cutting interaction for your opponent, and you're just getting so greedy to draw cards.
There's two funny things about this Winsaru Guoja. So first of all, it's Krios is the one who's playing this. Used to be an old Ryman, so is now back with Arcane Guoja. Second, I gave you the incorrect stats. He actually did go 4-0 that week. And third, he is not running Thurible at all.
Oh.
He actually just straight playing. I wouldn't even say it's like a turbo Seiryu because there's no Beseeching Fatestone. This is like allies based Seiryu, right? We're playing 4 Eternal Magistrates, which is great against people who want to use Dungeon Guide. We're playing like Trained Hawks, Shimmer Cloak Assassins, another good example of a card that's more into the kind of like ally based board instead of just being turbo, shoot you with a couple Arcane Blasts. And then, of course, because it's Krios, he's also sideboarding a Mordred and an Uther. So he loves to sideboard those in, and then he goes, Guoja level 1, reveal my material deck, and it's like there's just a Mordred CSR in there. Makes absolutely no sense, and your opponent's just like, wait a minute. Is he playing it? Is he playing attack cards? But yeah, that's an interesting one. And then I guess the last deck to go here, the Fire Aggro Diao-Chan, which not Dire. Fire. That's my bad. I didn't double check these ones before I put them in here. But yeah, I mean, Fire Aggro Diao-Chan, Zeus has been playing this for a long time in Yeti's, very classic. The introduction of Ignis Deus, which we've talked about before, is a fantastic way to kind of aggress this deck, right? It lets you level up on your first turn. So you can go 2 down for Fire Bloom Flourish. If you're playing Fragmented, you can just go 2 down, Fire Bloom Flourish. In your ends, or at the end of your main phase, just Ignis Deus before your opponent can do anything. You go to level 1, and then you trigger your Fire Bloom Flourish drawn to memory. So that's kind of nice. I believe he is playing regular Spirit of Fire because he wants to play around a little bit more of an aggro setup. I have noticed people have stopped playing Arthur in this deck for the most part. They're leaning more towards playing cards like Glowing Conflagration, the extra Phantasias like Ravenous Pyre, since there's so many level up decks. And then also Scathing Seminary. Scathing Seminary, a kind of neat card that came out in MRC Alter. It says Cleric Human class bonus on enter. If you're balanced, deal 2 unpreventable damage. It's 2 cost 2/1, so pretty efficient.
Pretty good. We love just dealing damage for just playing an ally. In effect, a lot. I think it's as a spell though, so that's something to keep in mind. It's not just
Sure, that'd be kind of crazy if it's just like 2 unpreventable damage under any circumstance. But yeah, there's not too much to talk about in terms of the decks. It is cool to see the spread of different decks. So let's take a look at the meta breakdown and see how many Lorraines we have this week.
Pardon? So instantly, our number 1 represented champion
is not Lorraine.
Who is she? Yeah, like, what is going on? Did everyone at this Yeti just agree to play Diao-Chan? Like, I just feels like one of those where people experimenting with this Yeti, where people like, oh, we're onto something here. But it's cool to see Diao-Chan being the most represented here, followed by Xander. And I feel like this is more, if I look at it correctly here, this is going to be more of the, a lot of Luxem Xander, less aggro. We see a couple of suited here, but it looks like more people leaning towards that Luxem Rile package here, which is cool to see. And then Lorraine, Gojia, and then I want to say our usual suspects following like the big top 3, Gojia, CL, Diana, Vanitas, of course, going to start showing up because of Boston. People like, oh, I want to play this deck, see how it works. Jin. And then for some reason, we had 2 Mad Lads on Rye, just being like, you know what, let's have some fun. We're going to play Rye here.
We had 2 Wind Rise.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of them, people were, or those 2 players specifically, are playing with the Arcane Elemental, like variation of Windrai, sort of making that work. So it's cool to see a champion that we haven't seen played since the first ever Worlds. So it's, nice, a little bit representation. And the fact that there was more Rise than Merlins says something, right? People wanting to try something new, something different. 48 total players here. Spirit meta breakdown as to be expected. Fire just going to stay above that 50% mark. Wind, I'm surprised there's not more wind, especially because Thurible was legal. Uh, like I'd love to see like 30-40% wind. Water, not a lot of people experimenting as much. I think a lot of the Dao-Chens and Dianas did factor into this water. But along with the Grand Archive community, I do think, and correct me if I'm wrong here once, but it takes about like a week or two once a new card is introduced for it to really settle into people's deck lists and the meta game. So I'm like, as I said, I'm surprised there's not a lot of win, but at the same time, I'm not surprised because a lot of people probably have overlooked Thurible or not really wanting to like put it in their deck quite yet.
I think a lot of people also tend to not have access to a lot of cards. They have like a deck or two, and then they kind of commit really hard to that deck throughout the season. So unless you're someone or you're in a testing group where you have access to a lot of cards, or you're in a region where getting cards is really easy, I find it takes, like you said, a week or two for people to really adjust if they want to make a swap to a different deck. And I mean, we'll see that in our first bigger event here after the introduction of Purifying Thurible. So we'll jump right into the Cake Online Regional, which was, oh, when was Cake Online Regional? August 30th, I believe. If you guys are interested in seeing that, we do have a VOD of the whole thing on this channel. You can check it out in our live section. But yeah, let's jump right into that. Take a look at the top 8. And Valkyrie, if you could take it away for us.
Alrighty, so Cake Online Regional, we have the hometown hero Jimmy Lee taking it all on his signature Lil Rain deck. This is once again the Ensoul version, something very akin to what we would see that won Boston with Bobby Tortilla, with a little bit of Jimmy Lee twist on it and flair. And then we sort of see the uprising of Wind Tristan, and this is going to be something that's going to start to get familiar. When Tristan, even though it took fourth in this event, this is when people are going to start really taking advantage of Thurible. And I'm just going to double check to make sure that this is the one that did run the Thurible.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, Asano was playing Thurible.
Yeah, so taking advantage of that. And, you know, that Thurible's that little bit of help Tristan needed against Rile. So it's really great to see. Pro-An KFCing it up with the Peppered Chefs and that Suzaku. Perfy, and it's so funny to see Perfy on Merlin, his favorite champion, and doing well. Third place with that Fragmented Spirit of Merlin, or Fragmented Fire Spirit on Merlin. And then we have Dexter on Luxem Xander, Gurtharos on the Oblation CL. And this is like one of those decks that if you don't know how to play against it, it can blow you out of the water completely. The playstyle is just so different than like a normal CL deck, and you're like, okay, like why aren't they putting an Omen? Like what's going on? And then all of a sudden they put an Advent of the Stormcaller, and you're like, wait, why do you have an Arcane
for
doc?
30?
Yeah, exactly there. Great Arsenic with the Luxem Xander, and then Stevo sort of sneaking in with that Vanitas list. And this is something that like I personally thought when Vanitas stormed in Boston is like this was a one-time deal. This was a hey, we caught you off guard with this list. No one knows how to play against it. But as soon as players start reviewing the VODs, looking at the play patterns, and like actually looking at to the deck, you're like, oh, this is what the deck wants to do. This is how you counter it. And even Bobby Tortilla showed on stream in the finals how to play around Vanitas. So I feel like a lot of the like mid-skill players who didn't make that like top event or play against the decks sort of now have that knowledge, and they're not as vulnerable to these crazy like lockouts as we would have seen prior.
Yeah, it's definitely tough because Thurible does introduce more interaction towards it. However, for the most part, I would say that Thurible is not like a solution to Rile the Abyss, especially when you're playing against a lot of these more aggro decks. So when we look at the Guoja deck that Pro-An was playing, this deck is very difficult to deal with if they go first, because you can't interact easily with the graveyard unless you draw a Cleansing Reunion, basically. Because they can just wait until everything's played out and then use it, level up, and then go for the aggressive kill in that situation. So Purifying Thurible is great as a reactive option. It's just not like a hard answer in every game. Whereas, like, you know, if we talk about things like older metas, right? Nullifying Lantern, fracturize your Nullifying Lantern is a hard answer to a whole bunch of things. Like when Erupting was really popular, it wasn't like it turned off Erupting, it made it unwinnable. It was just really good, right? It's like when Orb of Sealing existed too. You could Orb of Sealing, you could fracturize your Orb of Sealing so that the seal counters didn't get removed from those cards. That's also fine. The problem that I found looking at the Cake Online Regional for a lot of players is that everyone still just wants to high roll each other. So everyone's just playing really high roll aggressive focus decks, or they're playing their favorite deck, right? Asuna on Shadow Strike Tristan. We have Perfy on Merlin, right? We have Krios on the Wind Seiryu. Like, these are good decks. Don't get me wrong. They're very good decks, but we can tell, like, looking at the way that the decks are built, there's very little interaction that people are playing for each other outside of like Resolute Stand. I mean, we have a couple people who like sideboard things like Crystallized Destiny and stuff like that, but when I'm looking at the material decks of most of these players, a lot of these are just, I want to draw more, I want to push more, I want more gas, I don't want to interact with you.
Yeah, I feel like that's just a inherited Grand Archive thing that sort of a lot of players like it when they are the one being proactive and having the value, and they really don't want to play that control style. They really like despise having to be the one to slow down and interact. They're like, well, if my opponent's getting to level up and do all cool stuff, why can't I level up and do cool stuff? And then, as you said, it gets into that race of, who can do their cool stuff the fastest, instead of, a player slowing it down and realizing, okay, maybe, if I cut these 16 cards, add in a little bit more interaction and stopping power, then my opponent, can't actually kill me because I can just stop whatever they're doing. And as we progress through the meta and, get to that point when Rile is banned, I think players start to realize that, and we'll see the deck list sort of slowly change.
Yeah, because even if we look at Dexter's deck, this is traditionally a control deck, right? So Serene, Luxem, Xander is inherently a control deck that combos off after a certain point in the game. His material deck has Backup Charger, Chalice of Blood, Grand Crusader's Ring, Tengu, Map, Luxera's Map, and an Orb of Hubris. He only has Terrafring as a defensive regalia. There's no Safeguard Amulet. There's no Mirror. There's no Lantern, right? There's a lot of these like defensive. There's no Blinding Orb. There's nothing that will really keep you alive or protect you. He does have Nullifying Lantern and the Safeguard Amulet in the side. But to me, this indicates that like I want to play aggressively, even if my deck is more control focused.
Yeah, like you can even look at just the pure list of only one Thieving Cut.
Two Heavenly Guides in the main is crazy.
Right, like usually those are the cards reserved for the Heavenly Guides or sideboard, because like, oh, okay, we'll see if my opponent's going to try and race to level 3 and I could just take advantage of that. Not running Thieving Cut, I think, is criminal, because that was one of like the biggest cards Luxemzander has against allies to, remove an ally, draw a card, get 2 cards down to go to level 2, get it back off of your level 2 if needed. But nope, just deciding to run more and more value main deck, cutting in all these options. And I'm curious to see like sort of the matchup chart that this deck went against, to see like if that sideboard, all your defensive options, the sideboard mattered or not, but who knows.
Also, honorable mention. So Cake Online Regional did have 102 players, it prizing out to top 16. There was a water player that made it top 16, Dom123 on the water unique allies Lorraine. But the special shout out is to Destiny Clownfish, who got 19th, sadly, but was playing your favorite deck, the Water Aetherwing Diana.
Yes, I do see it here, and it was the high roll version with the Mad Hatter. So one of those. It's super fun to see. I've been really tempted to toy around with the Looking Glass Mad Hatter. It's the one thing that like Water Allies Diana has the advantage to, because you have a lot of fast kill power with Crystalline Archer, and Mad Hatter just sort of advances your gate. But unfortunately, if you do banish those Ranger Strides off of the on enter trigger, you're kind of out of luck at that point, and just should maybe start considering what to do the next game if that's the play you go for.
Yeah, a lot of interesting options from there. Let's go into the stats. I wanna take a look at stats here. So
stat me once.
Guess who's number 1, baby? Guess who's back? She's back again. Yeah, so we do have Lorraine incoming here in first place. 102 players. We have 23.67 Lorraines. Now it's a split. That's mainly the split between like people playing Lorraine, Merlin. I believe there's some splits where people are playing like Lorraine, Tony if they're playing Restand Wake Up on Wind with the Mad Hatter deck. But everything here kind of looks a little bit more towards what I would have expected in terms of champions, not so on elements. So champions, seeing Assassin, seeing Xander, seeing Tristan alongside Lorraine and Guoja as the top four, making up more than 50% of the overall meta share. This makes a lot of sense to me, right? Rile the Abyss is still great. All these champions utilize the Rile the Abyss package very well. They utilize that kind of engine, but they also utilize wind engines and this new Purifying Thurible. So like if you're gonna see it in any decks, I think these are the decks that you're gonna see them in.
Yeah, I totally agree with them there. It's honestly Lorraine and the four usual suspects. Like if I look at a chart where it shows me the top champions, these are the five I'd expect to see right now in the current meta. If anyone else thinks in there, it is going to be a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, overall, there's actually not too much that surprises me here. Everything seems kind of normal. We're gonna see people playing Diao Chan, Merlin, CL, Vanitas. Now that the Horse and Taxes deck has been revealed, Vanitas definitely a popular one in there. But overall, there's nothing too crazy. I do think that Wind is still fairly underrepresented at this point. Water is losing more representation. So water is teetering down from the 12 to 15% down to 10%, which honestly kind of makes sense to me. Wind is going to see the resurgence, and then fire is still good even with the introduction of Thurible. Thurible is a card that I think just kind of deletes water. It deletes a self-mill strat really well, and it's really, really effective against anyone who is thinking about playing Polar Depths or anyone who's like really focused around trying to just get a couple floating, play some Paladins or play some Crystalline Archers. So everything here kind of looks normal to me. Is there anything that like really stands out to you?
Nothing really stands out to me. I do agree with your sentiment on the spirits. Poor water players. Not really.
Or
It's
Nico
been
players.
punch after punch. You're right. It's after the HVN season, they lost Lost in Thought, they lost Dissonant Fractal, and then anytime a new set comes out or new Proxies Vault, they just get pushed further and further down, and they're struggling. They were eating so good, and now bottom of the totem pole. Fire is back on the menu. It honestly, and I'm gonna make this parallel because I've told people many times before. This is reminding me of how DOA looked when at the end of the DOA season, starting with FTC coming out. Water not popular. Fire, everyone was losing their mind with
fire.
Creative Shock. Yeah, it's like play fire because you have Creative Shock and Cremation Ritual. You get to draw cards, baby. We're in it. And then of course, win players were just doing the win player thing. We got some of those ally players. You got the Ferrari Lorraine, if anyone remembers that deck that went around for a while. But yeah, so very reminiscent of DOA. Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, but we'll jump into the next events here. So we have 3 more events to go over, which will be the Yeti Webcam Weekly of September 4th, the Michigan DTR Regionals. I did cast this regional. It is streamed on the True Champion Gaming YouTube channel, and then also on the same day was the NorCal Regional, sponsored by TM32. So if you want to check out any of those VODs, they're all available. I will link them in the video, like hyperlinked somewhere in the corner. But otherwise, yeah, let's just get right into it. And so Yeti Gaming Weekly, the first one of September, we have September 4th. Now, it looks like we're just back to fire. Surprisingly enough, we have Merlin in first place, alongside Luxem Xander, and then 2 Onsel decks here. So looking at this, what are your thoughts?
People got tired of trying to make Thurible work. They were like, I could get rid of my opponent's graveyard, or I could draw 2, discard 2, and level up my next turn. And that's exactly what these players are choosing. I just think a lot of the times, Grand Archetype players just really enjoy playing the decks that are performing at the top levels quite well. So maybe these players just really want to test out that Bobby Tortilla list or a Jimmy Lee list that we might see going around. And so it just makes a lot of sense. Yetis are a mix of casual and competitive. It is a chance for players to play decks that they normally don't get to play that often, or like also a testing ground. So for all we know, these players could have just been like, "Man, I'm super excited to finally be able to play in Solar Rain. Let's take it to this Yetis because maybe my locals doesn't fire as often." So that's sort of what I'm reading here. Just more people wanting to do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, and a big thing with the Yeti weeklies is you'll find you'll get a lot of interesting results from them right after a BNR or right after a set release. Or if you're just looking for like fun decks to play, it's right after like a bunch of events have gone on. So like closer to the end of a season, you'll start to see people play some like wild fun decks that have a lot of unique stuff. I think this is kind of in the period where people are really trying to just like, I want to use as much as I can of my Rile the Abyss before it potentially gets banned. Us in the future, we know it did get banned. So seeing these players kind of do that makes a lot of sense. Jumping into the stats for this week, though, it's interesting. So wind lost a bit of representation and water actually went up, which is kind of shocking, especially after we talk so much about Thurible, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's just because of Dao-Chan. A lot of players are like sort of eking towards that water fractal list again. And I think it's one of those people realizing like, oh, this deck's still decent enough and can kill these Ryle decks before they level up. So that's maybe the sort of like operation. Fire also losing some representation, which is kind of weird as well. Since water did gain some, fire down from that 60% mark, albeit not a lot, 57%. That's, still super close to 60. But fire is losing ground. We have Lorraine with two of the usual suspects, and then we have Merlin and Diana falling right behind. I think this is also just a time people having fun, playing their Diana list. And I think an upsurge of Merlin just because there's going to be a little bit of preparation for regionals and store champs that are coming up in this month, which I know a lot of places did have those events. And, Yetis is a good way to really test against other decks without really showing your local area what you're going to be playing.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting results from the upcoming regional. There's not too much to talk about with this Yeti Weekly. This one's more of a filler. So the ones right before big regionals and big events like the 820, the 822, 821 right before Ascent Boston,
Mhm.
it's definitely a
Yeah.
filler event, right? A lot of people don't really want to show off what they're like finalized playing. This I think is another good example because the weekend leading up to this, Michigan Regional is a huge one. We'll just show you guys right here. I believe Michigan Regional was slated to be about 100 people. It ended up being a little bit less, closer in the 80 range. And then the NorCal Regional, which was 122 players. Now, the results from these two regionals were very interesting to me. I think that there is a super healthy spread of decks that are playable and decks that are getting played. And also the archetypes within these types of decks. Like it's not just element spread, it's not just everyone's playing Tristan, right? There's a good amount of flexibility here. So looking at the Michigan DTR regionals, this was a 1.5K tournament. Now there's a huge cash prize involved with this. So playing for first place was relevant. We have Girthos, who did make it to first place, 601. Audio Medic, second place, 601. Now this is Win Tristan and Onsol, right? These are decks that have been doing well in the past, have been doing well in the current season. And then we have Rex Kanan, part of Chess Club, one of the creators of this deck as well. Fire Vanitas still got it, right? 511. And then the deck that I personally think always has a seat in the meta, Water Allies Lorraine. Right, yeah. Water Allies Lorraine, very good. The Halocline Scout that you see there is a fantastic card that was released with A and B. Super, super good. It's basically Warrior Poison Dagger. But you can use it with Assassin too, so you can double Poison Dagger someone if you want to. The only difference is I believe it's only allies that attack that get the benefit of it.
Correct. Yeah, an allied attacking a rested unit will get that benefit from it. And good thing Halakine Slout does rest a unit when it does enter. Pied Lid, very craftily by the dad smoocher. It's really cool to see just water allies coming in. And then sort of like broken record player here, another Win Tristan deck. Merlin coming in. What's interesting about this sixth place or seventh place list forgive me for the name, is Zephyr Tatish, I believe is the name of the
Zephyr
pilot of
Touch?
this deck.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. They actually only run 5 Umbra cards in their deck for their Fire Umbra CL. It's 3 Siphoning Fractals and 2 um
Beguiling Coup?
spacing yes, Beguiling Coup. Other than that, it's just a value like Fire Engine and a little uh like protection here and there through your norm elements. And I really like the Siphoning Fractal in the deck because it helps slow down the game. He knows that a lot of allies are going to die, and it's a great way to like recover, get some life back, deal a little bit of extra damage. And if you are going against sort of like a deck that took 8th, piloted by Superior, a Tenoris suited deck, they have a lot of units that will easily be committed to the board, and then you could remove them and get those interaction with the siphoning fractals.
So interestingly enough, Zephyr deck is in the style that I think CL will probably get played more, knowing that Rile the Abyss is banned. He's playing 3 Heavy Swings and 2 Lamentation Stoles. These are the exact, and 2 Beguiling. These are the exact ratios that I like to run personally. Sometimes it's 3 Beguiling Coup, but the concept of this is that if you have attack cards, you can play value or you can play aggressively. You have the flexibility to play both. CL is a champion that so effectively gains value from just attacking. Enough that I like playing Excalibur in it. Like main board Excalibur, so you can just put a weapon down, attack with it, and then if you're already at 5 omens, you're drawing into memory, right? You're gaining value from that immediately. But it combos with a lot of things, right? Like when we look at cards like Heavy Swing or Lamentation's Toll, if you play a Heavy Swing on the first turn, you banish it, put an Omen counter on it, and then you draw into a Lamentation's Toll, or you're like just 6 damage, 7 damage away. All you have to do is materialize your Manchar Armoire, and then make the swap for that, and you just play it again, right? Having the Omen counter on a card basically means at any point I can play this again because of the existence of Manchar Armoire. And also because of CL level 2, which a lot of people forget.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's really beneficial for. I also like the inclusion of Whimsy Warden, a starter deck card that not a lot of CL decks play, but this card's insane. It becomes a 3/2
With
interceptor. Yeah.
And it's one of the cards that doesn't ask for a specific type of omen, like an attack omen or an ally omen. It's just any 2 omens, this card is unlocked, which I think is just fantastic when you look at that. Something I do want to talk about, I guess, since I brought up CL2 is I misunderstood the ruling on this. If you activate CL2 at fast speed, because the activation of the omen is part of the card's resolution, you can actually activate slow cards at fast speed. So you can regal someone at fast speed by using this, which is kind of crazy to me. It also, I believe, works the same way with Grim Pastiche with the copy effect, where you copy and then you can use it. So there's a lot of kind of crazy things, and I really hope people start to cook more with CL, because CL is crazy as a lineage. Level 1 says do bonus damage every turn when you attack. Level 2 says fix my hand, and then later on in the game, just get a card whenever you want. And level 3 says I deal 2 damage every turn.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
I honestly think CL is equivalent to Merlin, just in strength. It does so much and very like underutilized right now. And give players some time, and CL is going to be like a menace to deal with. And especially as a guardian with the maximum amount of life a champion can possibly have, he's so hard to get rid of.
Mm-hmm. When we look at so we've looked at a lot of these decks, right? The classic decks. Win Shadow Strike Tristan, we could talk about it forever. It's basically the same thing plus Purifying Thurible. Less people are running the Blinding Orb. They slotted in the Purifying Thurible. Everything else is basically the same. Some people play like a couple Spirels. Some people don't. Kind of up to you. The one of Penumbral Waltz is another option that I see people playing. The big thing I want to talk about, though, is looking at Superior's list with Suited. Now, if you really like Suited, guys, I'm going to shout him out again. True Champion Gaming, Terry, my goat, just did a deep dive on their Patreon about Suited. Terry loves Suited. It's his favorite deck, I think. And if you really like Suited, you should definitely go subscribe to their Patreon and check it out, because that's going to be a solid guide there, right? And it's something that we don't have out as a resource yet. Suited has so much complexity and is so fun. So going into Superior's list, what I want to talk about is the sideboard card he's running called Suited Trickery. Now, Suited Trickery is a 1-cost action. It's an assassin suited skill. Now, it says, until the beginning of your next turn, players can't declare attacks with their champion unless they pay 2. Then if you control a suited ally, draw a card into your memory. So there's a couple things about this card that are crazy good. 1, it recycles itself. 2, it is very inexpensive to play this. And 3, this basically says you can never flame sweep me.
Oh.
So if you Terrafring plus Suited Trickery, it's almost impossible to pay the cost to flame sweep. Because if you go level 2, you need to have the floating already out for that. And this deck is a deck that can very often run Censor to deal with the early floating. But also, if you try to push over, like if you try to Dungeon Guide into a flame sweep, it's really hard to pay 6 for the flame sweep after paying like 3 for the Dungeon Guide. So it's like a 10-card combo, basically, if you want to pay through those. And then if you want to pay through Terrafring as well, it's 12 cards, right? Or it's just a level up, pay 4 for Flame Sweep, pay 2 for Suited Trickery, that's 7, and then you have to pay 9 if you have the Terrafring. It puts you in a position where flame sweeping the board is really difficult, and at best, you pay 2, kill 1 ally. So that, alongside like the Mortal Ambition, kind of puts Suited in this place where it doesn't feel nearly as weak to the cleave that we talked about before, being like the more difficult thing to get around.
Yeah, no, I love that a lot. That is really cool interaction. And, honestly, if your opponent has 13 cards at level 1, they might as well be winning that game anyways. Uh, but yeah, no, I think it's just these DTR cards that are underutilized are really, really like cool to see. And we see this deck running Trump Set, which was initially a card overlooking suited list, and now more and more people are starting to run it. It's you get to change the target of an attack, and then if it's a suited ally you change it to, they just get buffed. So they are either able to retaliate for a lot of damage or survive the initial attack. And if you're able to redirect a Lorraine's Rending Flame into just a poor Rouge, that you're more than happy to do that rather than take the 12. So a lot of cool interaction. This deck is really neat. Plus, you get a lot of cool fancy CSRs if you want to max rarity yet.
And you can play Trump Set even when they target your champion when you have Taunt. You can still redirect to something else if you want. Because Taunt only applies on attack declaration. So there's some other neat things. I guess the last thing I want to talk about before we go into the champion meta breakdown, in 21st place, just outside of Prizing, We Are Awesome, a regular to the Yeti sphere, was playing the Water Guoja Allen, the Carps on Coda build. Did get a win on stream, which was super cool. Barely missed top cut. But I mean, I love that deck. Great to see. Also, a reminder on that, if you play Guoja, don't forget your Guoja 2 lineage release. It's very important, guys.
Yes.
Very, very important. But let's jump right back in to see the dominance of Lorraine once again. Seated in first place at 30% of an 87-player event. We have 26 Lorraines. Guoja making her way to second place, though. I think people are starting to realize how effective that Winsaria Guoja deck is, how efficient it is at doing a lot of things. Purifying Thurible is a fantastic addition to that. And then CL, Merlin, Tristan, kind of the usual suspects here. Don't see too many other unique things. But what do you think about the Spirit meta breakdown for this event?
This is something that, Wind has staying around that 25%. Like, as much as we're seeing like the Thurible come in and everything, Wind has constantly been in these last events, 25%, 25%. Fire, though, faltering a little bit below that 60%. Looks like those players are moving over to Water here as well. But this is sort of like our standard percentage breakdown that we're going to start seeing. Fire is going to be anywhere from 55 to 60%. Wind's going to be around 20 to 25%. Water, anywhere from like 10 to 15%. Anything higher than 15% for Water, I think, is, sort of like strange for that. But yeah, I think this is just the norm. This is what the DTR element breakdown is probably going to look like for a little bit until people, or I should say, looks like until people assume Rile will be banned, which we now know Rile is banned. So this is no longer going to be what we're going to see. But this is like, if Rile was still alive with us here today, this is probably going to be our percentages for the foreseeable events.
Yeah, and I think water will make the resurgence with the ban of Rile the Abyss. Water, and not just the ban of Rile the Abyss, but also the removal of Purifying Thurible from the Proxia Vault. So we will have to wait until Phantom Monarchs to be able to play Purifying Thurible again. So going into that, we have our very last event here, the NorCal DTR Regional, sponsored by TM32. This was a super interesting regional because when you look at the top 8 players for this, you would never expect this in a meta where Rile and Thurible both exist. But we have in first place a Water Merlin that I believe is playing 63 cards in the main deck.
Yes, you are correct on that one. Cannot make those last few cuts here. And you think like, oh, is like the extra cards turbocharged? Nope, not even a single turbocharge in this deck. These are legitimate like cards that did not get cut for, particular reasons. But this is such a defensive Merlin build in water. It really punishes your opponent, bleeds them out of resources, and then of course Merlin, the queen of late game. Every other turn you get a GCR and extra damage. It is so good, and a lot of decks really struggle to answer Majestic Spirit in this metagame right now. Not a lot of these decks are able to really get past that. The Spell Shroud is very strong as well. So it's cool to see that sort of a like slower, more methodical style of deck, one that's truly meant for a control. There's not really that many aggressive pieces here. We see like Snow White coming into this deck just to try and help lock down their opponent, prevent some of these level ups, and sort of once again slow down the game's pace, because we mentioned it 2 events ago. People just want to go fast, want to do their thing. And if the reason why Vanitas worked so well, and reason why this deck worked so well, is if you throw your opponent off of their game plan, a lot of players don't know what to do.
Yeah, this deck has a lot of utility. So there's a couple things in here that I think are pretty effective. So Snow White is great against a lot of decks that are played in this region. And I want to specify region, right? This is NorCal. A lot of players from SoCal will go there. I believe players from your region as well will probably drive down towards this. I do see a lot of familiar names in here. Big shout out to Jim the Eternal, one of our own here, is one of the Yeti joined casters on SPP, getting 9th place. So he did get in the prizing there, just off the graphic for us though. But yes, I digress. The reason I brought up Jim is because he's playing Fire Vanitas, right? He's playing the Horse and Taxes Ponytas deck. Now, the card that I think that is really effective in this deck against that is not Snow White. It's actually Cerulean Decree. So Cerulean Decree can reduce the power of a unit by 3. Now, Cerulean Decree is like a super efficient way to kind of pressure or to alleviate pressure from that Fire Vanitas deck. And I think that it worked really well in this deck specifically. Also, looking at Snow White, we talk about attack focused decks, right? Jianba and Tycoon both on Tristan. Those are definitely attack focused decks, whether it's attack with the Shadow's Claw, chip with Shadows, or just go for a Shadow Strike. Can't do that if you're not awake, right? We look at these other decks, Luxem Xander basically can't use Striking Illuminance in this case, can't use Thieving Cut, right? You can't exploit vulnerability, Mercenary Blade, clear the Incarnate Majesty and go for lethal, right? It denies a lot of these really effective things. And even looking at the Rain Goddess, right? That was the match on stream for the finals for first place, because this tournament also had pretty big cash prizing. Suri Glongtard versus the Rain Goddess. Jin needs to attack, right? If he only has access to Relentless Outburst, there's only so many kill cards you're going to have access to. So Snow White, super heads up decision here. I think we might see a resurgence of people playing Freezing Hail in the near future as well. Freezing Hail is really good to pair in with that, because you can Snow White, and then if they clear the Snow White, you can Freezing Hail them to keep them down anyways. Or even just, Freezing Hail is just so flexible. It was on Cat 1 for a reason, because it kills fairies, right? It kills fairies, it kills Hasty Messengers, it kills anything that's 2 cost or 2 life. And that's a really, really big one. But I do like the way this deck was crafted. I think, objectively, I can't agree with 63 cards. I am generally a 61er, so maybe I'm a little hypocritical for saying that. But looking at these, there's so many efficient things, right? Inundating Clash, giving you bonus power when attacking rested allies. Like that's also a really efficient card that kind of pairs in here. And then my personal favorite from the new set for water, Dredging Streams. Dredging Streams
Mm-hmm.
just says banish target card, level 2+ floating memory. It's just efficient to have. And it's nice to see people, because I know this player well, and I know that he's been playing Water Merlin forever. So to see him still working at it and finding success is very nice to see.
Yeah, really, really cool. Curious, and ratios are all so weird about it too. But don't want to get this isn't a deck tech for this Merlin. If you guys are curious about this complete list, it's on Fractal of Insight. Download it, check it out. I recommend playing it. It's one thing, to get better at the game is play the deck that just won an event to see why, how, when. And as one said, it's a meta call for that region specifically. Look at these decks in top 8. We have Tristan, which attacks. We have another Merlin deck that attacks mostly. Xander, that attacks a lot of the time. Jin only attacks. Tristan, a fire aggro Xander, which, if you're not familiar with this deck, it's been around for quite a while. They attack with allies a lot of the time, but also you can just run Rending Flames. So once again, big attacks. And then a deck that, we don't see that often, but if we are going to see it, it is going to be a NorCal Wind Arisana. Sort of got nerfed because of the Proxies Vault update to the Polaris, the Twinkling Cauldron. Instead of it being absolutely free, it now has a memory cost of 1, which does slow down the deck because you do have to sort of go negative to bring that out to prevent these allies from eating you alive. But looks like Fruitcake still made it work, bringing in that top 8, just barely getting on the graphic, but a win's still a win.
It's interesting too. He's running the Looking Glass instead of Lunar Conduit. Well, it's Looking Glass and Sensor instead of actually no, it's Looking Glass, Sensor, and Thurible. But I guess you have to have Thurible, so that one makes sense. But Sensor, Thurible together make a lot of sense. And then you look at the Looking Glass, and that's usually where the Lunar Conduit spot went in. But in this deck, his focus was to have play Chamber Reflections and have access to Gloamspire Black Market. Because if you glimpse at the beginning and you see a Gloamspire Black Market, you can just put it to the bottom immediately, right? And then that you're going to shuffle your deck when you go to search for it based on the Chamber Reflections. So having access to that is actually... It synergizes really well, because a lot of the time people will play a regular Spirit with Chamber Reflections. They'll draw the card that they can't play, and then it's dead in their hand forever, unless they can somehow shuffle it back in with a Tabula of Salvage or something, right? But basically, you draw your one of Gloamspire Black Market, and you're not playing Fire, you are never playing that card. And that kind of sucks. So he's playing 2, and he also has the Serene Spirit to put it back down, which I think is really cool. Also, in a deck where you glimpse a lot, I guess it makes more sense too.
Yeah, you glimpse on mostly late game though. The only real pre-level 3 glimpse you have is 3 visits. Oh, Wisdom Surprise as well, hiding in the corner. I think it's great. More people should be playing around with Chamber of Reflections, even if you don't want to run an off element card that's going to be completely stuck in your hand. Once there's a domain that everyone can run, no matter what element you're in, that can be fetched by Chamber of Reflections. And do you know what that card is?
It's called Mad Tea Party.
It is called Mad Tea Party.
I knew it.
Is insane.
I knew it's Mad Tea Party. So this weekend when I went up for Academy, I played Mad Tea Party, and after 3 turns, he said, "I'm killing your Mad Tea Party." It took the whole turn to kill it, and then he goes, "Okay, now I can play the game." It really does work like that. Mad Tea Party is pretty effective. I think a lot of people kind of miss that, but yeah. So last but not least, let's jump into the Spirit meta breakdown and the Champion meta breakdown. Now, looking at the top 8 here, I would not have expected to see what I saw in terms of the Spirit meta breakdown. So here you go.
Surprise!
We have a 65.6% Fire. However, in our top cut, we have 5 Wind decks, and first place is a Water deck. I mean, I guess
Fire.
10 people convert. It kind of still makes sense. 10 people out of top 16 is over the 60%. So the conversion is pretty accurate, but the Wind conversion was way higher than I expected.
Wind really doing a good job there, especially being an element that we had a lot of high hopes for with Thurible and everything. This is an event that finally showed up. It's also funny to look at the top 8 decks and then seeing that Lorraine was still the most represented champion, even though Lorraine really didn't do much in the top 8. Uh,
Hey man,
besides, you know,
Lorraine
get you to
Merlin.
Merlin. Yeah, yeah.
There were 2 Merlins in top 8. Actually, let's see. Top 16, there's 3 Merlins and 1 aggro Lorraine. Yeah, that's it for Lorraine. So there was just a lot of people playing. That's a lot of.
Yeah, it's crazy to see. You know, it's the usual suspects following the Lorraine. Merlin kind of being lumped in with Lorraine at this point, because if you see Lorraine, you'll see a Merlin. And Tristan, Gojia, Xander, CL, the 4 that I've been saying that you will always see with Ryle still around with us behind that Lorraine. And then sort of like your splattering of other champions. One thing that I was surprised about when looking at this graphic, 4 Sylvie players, all of them Fire Sylvie players, but it looks like they decided to just like, you know, this is the event we're going to break out Sylvie Slimes and see how we're going to fare.
This event was the most interesting to me. I think out of every event that happened so far, there was a little bit of the manipulation because there were bounties if you completed certain objectives. I don't think any of them were significant enough to change people's deck concepts.
Mm-hmm.
But there were funny ones like load a Cheshire Cat into a gun and then shoot her. There were some like really goofy, funny things. But yeah, so that does work for those of you who don't know. You can like Excalibur copy a bullet, or you can do funny things like that, and then you can activate the effect of the Cheshire Cat as if it were a bullet, load the bullet, and then shoot it.
Or Cheshire Cat just being used for not intended purposes.
There's a lot of funny stuff you can do in this game, and I'm glad to see people's creativity is really good. I am really excited to go over next week's stats, where we talk about the final event of Rile the Abyss, which is, well, it'll be reviewing my birthday Yeti, which was September 11th, and then that weekend was Ascent Taipei, where Rile the Abyss still did really great, and so did Purifying Thurible, and then both of them got removed. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about the first event or 2 after it came out, and just see how people have made their adjustments. Because we're kind of in a place where people are forced to brew again, and I think that that's going to be really fun to see.
Yeah, and at the time of this recording, we actually have one more big regional coming up. That's going to be the one on September 27th in my region over in the Pacific Northwest, happening in Portland. So that is another thing to keep your eyes on of post the first like large post-event Rile event. So, you know, I'm excited to report on that as well. But yeah, next week going to be super fun to see your birthday event, do a little celebratory ephemeral for you there. And then Ascent Taipei, the last event where Rile was legal, and sort of what it means from going from this point on.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of interesting things to see. I really hope that people can brew interesting water decks to come back. I hope that people kind of splash in different elements of Aetherwing decks, whether it's wind or fire. I'm just interested in seeing what else there is out there and what people are kind of working towards. Myself, I've been playing a lot of water CL. Really like playing fragmented waters, regular water CL. It's fun. I like attack-based decks. I think the idea of being able to attack regularly is pretty fun. Plus, Guardian gives you that flexibility. But
you get rewarded for just attacking. Why not?
I mean, yeah, dude. There's no better feeling than when you're on 5 Omen counters and you just attack with something and you go draw a card to memory, pass 10 cards in hand, and they look at you. They're like, "Huh?" They play something. Cerulean Decree, Frostwind. It's a bit of a demon at times, but it's been very fun to kind of think about different things without Rile the Abyss. I am a little sad that Rile the Abyss is gone. I only got to play it once, but I mean, it is what it is. I'm excited to see how things go with upcoming regionals and then leading into Ascent Niagara Falls. That will be, I believe, the next Ascent that's coming up. And then after that, it's Akihabara, right? And that's,
you are correct on that.
I think that's it for DTR season, just those 2. Cool.
Crazy to think that the 2 more Ascents, and then we're at a new set already.
Well,
It
be
feels so
Merlining it up. Mercblade. Ghost of
Merc-
Pendragon.
No,
Mercblade
please.
again. Ghost of Pendragon again.
I can't relive through the FTC meta.
Dude, Mercblade is 100%. There's no way that card's not getting banned.
Yeah, it's already up there in the category. Was it 1 or
Cat 1, I think, yeah.
Cat 1? Yeah.
Like, yeah,
So-
the moment PTM comes out, they're gonna do like the keynote. They're gonna be like, "Hey guys, this is the Ascent Akihabara PTM dev notes. We are pre-banning Mercenaries Blade." I think everyone can see the writing on the wall for that card. But other than that, thank you guys so much for joining us. I know it's been a little while since we've had our last event. Things have been pretty hectic between academy, birthdays, work, all this stuff. So thank you guys so much for joining us here. I guess by the time you see this video, if you watch this far, there already would have been a giveaway on our channel. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. And then the usual, like, subscribe, leave a comment, let us know how you feel about our Rile the recap, kind of just mash everything together. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. Anything else you want to say, Valk?
That's everything. I think you did it so eloquently, and that is a beautiful note to leave off on. And we will see you all next time.
See you guys.